Hello everyone. Happy Tuesday, May 26th. It is your favorite math teachers, Miss Henderson, Mrs. Bates. Hope you guys all had an awesome, amazing Memorial weekend. We kind of asked for better weather, so I hope you guys did have some fun, able to get outside. I know it was pretty toasty, but it was a good weekend. Just a reminder, we have been sending information to you guys via Schoology. Those assessments, we have taken assessment 1 and we've taken assessment 2. Assessment 1 was our algebra assessment from about a month ago, and assessment 2 was our assessment from last Monday on the coordinate plane. If you have not done those via the Microsoft Forms, you need to go back onto Schoology and look for the links to those assessments. Make sure you're getting those done, guys. Those are so important. This is not what Mrs. Fates and I are asking you to do. This is what the school, the district is asking, okay? So you need to get those assessments in. Today we are going to start week 6. We are focused on integers and rational numbers. And I think you guys will see a lot of overlap with what you did on the coordinate plane because that also embeds itself into this topic. So first thing I want to talk about with you guys. Since you were in kindergarten, your first foundation of number sense, okay, you guys have always worked with what are natural numbers, okay? So numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the positive numbers above 0, okay? And then we also have another topic which are called whole numbers, okay? And those are all numbers including 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're all our positive values including 0, okay? So we don't usually think about this when you're starting to learn numbers. These categories come later, but there are ways to organize numbers, and we have natural numbers, which I was just talking about, which are all the positive whole numbers, including 1 through infinity, essentially. And then our second subcategory is whole numbers, okay, which the only difference is whole numbers include 0, okay? Natural numbers do not include 0, okay? So those are 2 ways to categorize numbers. We're going to be working on other ways that we categorize numbers and extending the number line to the left of 0, okay? So these are whole numbers and natural numbers. It might be good to take a screenshot of this and save it in your notes and Notability. The next category that we have are what we call integers, okay? And you guys had a little exposure to integers last week when you were working with the coordinate plane, because when we were working outside of the first quadrant, we were working with negative coordinates, okay? So integers are our positive whole numbers, 0, okay? So they include our natural numbers and our whole numbers. But the next piece that we're adding on with integers are what we call negative numbers, okay? So negative numbers are to the left of 0, and the further left, okay, the smaller the value. Just like if you think 1 is less than 2, -3 is less than -2. What I always think is the colder you are, the smaller the worth of a number, okay? So if it's 3 degrees below 0, that's colder than 2 degrees below 0. Another way that you can think of negative numbers is owing money. If you owe somebody $3, that's kind of a worse off situation than owing somebody $2, okay? So think the further left, the smaller the value of the number. Another great slide that you might want to take a screenshot of just to have in your notes. Okay, so these are integers, and this is what we're going to be focusing on. Now, another thing to think about is integers. They are involved in the real world all the time, okay? So I gave you kind of a couple examples down below. For example, if someone says it's 7 degrees below 0 today, that's a great example of using a negative value, okay? So that would be represented with a -7. That shows 7 degrees below 0. I earned 20 points in a game. Now, we don't usually put the positive sign usually we associate when there isn't a positive sign or a negative sign that the value is positive. So I earned 20 points in the game. That's like a positive 20. I lost $7 at the park. Well, that's a loss. That's a negative value. The mountain is 500 feet above sea level. Okay, so think 500 above zero would be a positive 500. Okay, now you can put the plus sign. I wouldn't take off. My only thing is I want you to recognize that if you were given those integers without the plus sign in front of them, that you recognize that they are positive. Okay, negative numbers, in order to be recognized as negative, must have the negative symbol in front of them. Now, another category that we have are what we call rational numbers. Okay, so rational numbers. Another great slide that you'll want to take a picture of and save in your notes, okay? So rational numbers, what we want to think about is they include all our natural numbers. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They include, if we go back up here just to remind you, natural numbers, okay, 1 through 10. They include our whole numbers, okay, which the only difference between natural and whole numbers is we include 0. They include our positive and negative integers, okay, so all the whole negative and whole positive values, including 0. But what rational numbers also include are numbers that can be written as fractions, okay? So the number doesn't actually have to be written in the form of a numerator and a denominator, but we want to know that the number can be converted into a fraction. So for example, negative 460%. Well, we have learned in our percent unit that a percent is just a fraction out of 100. So if we're talking about negative 460%, we could write that as a fraction using negative 460 over 100. If we were to look at negative 2 and 7/10, we can write that as a fraction, negative 2, and then 7/10, which you guys also know is to be a mixed number. Negative 1 and 1/4 is already written as a fraction. Same with negative 1 1/2. A positive 20%, just like we talked about. Percent is a fraction out of 100, so we could write that as 20 over 100. 3/4, already a fraction. 5/4, already a fraction. 3 1/2, already a fraction. 4 6/10, we can convert that into a fraction, 4 6/10, okay? So those right there are your rational numbers. If the number can be converted into a negative or positive fraction with a numerator and denominator, then that is a rational number, okay? So think as rational numbers is like the big umbrella that includes our positive and negative integers, okay? And then under that, we have our whole numbers, which are 0, 1, 2, 3, all our positive integers. And then under that, we have our natural numbers, okay? So again, a good slide that you might want to take a screenshot of and save in your notes. Something else that we're going to be associating with our values are opposites, okay? And really what you want to think about with opposites is if you're given a negative value, the positive of that value is its opposite, okay? And the same thing happens with rational numbers. So let me give you an example to better explain this. So let's say I gave you negative 3. Negative 3's opposite would be positive 3. Okay, so the opposite of negative 3 is a positive 3. And if you think about it on a number line, which I'll show on the next slide, negative 3 is a distance of 3 away from 0. So the number that is 3 away from 0 on the right of 0 would be positive 3. So positive 3 is a distance of 3 away, and negative 3 is a distance of 3 away. Okay? Oops. So that's what we're thinking about when we're thinking about our negative opposites and positives, okay? Same thing would happen if I gave you a positive, if I gave you positive 4, its opposite would be negative 4. And if we're looking at rational numbers, let's say I gave you negative 2/3, the opposite of negative 2/3 is just a positive 2/3, okay? again, another good slide you might want to take a screenshot of, or you could even just save this in your notes after. So this is just another breakdown of opposites, kind of what I just went over. So if you see in the definition, opposite numbers are the same distance from zero. So like for example, if we were focused on -2, its opposite is going to be +2, okay? 2 is 2 units away from 0, -2 is 2 units away from 0. Same thing if we were looking at +4, okay? 4 is 4 units away from 0. If we went to the left of 0, -4 is 4 units away from 0. So those are opposite integers, okay? Here we have our rational numbers, so the same concept, okay? So if I'm looking at -1.5, all right, that is a distance of 1.5 away from 0 to the left. So if I wanted to find its opposite, and I should do this in purple just to kind of match, I would want to go 1, okay, and then I would want to go 1/2. So this would be +1.5. They're the same distance from 0. Same thing with a +3rd, okay? If this is +1/3, it's 1/3 away from 0 to the right, so its opposite is going to be 1/3 of the way from 0 on the left, okay? Same thing with a +2, all right? 2 is a distance of 2 away from 0 on the right, so its opposite is going to be -2 on the left. And then -3, you've probably already figured that out. The opposite of a -3 is just going to be a +3. Same distance from 0, just on opposite sides of the number line. All right. So here's a breakdown of today's IXL assignments. You do have 3 strands today, but Mrs. Fates and I agreed since you have 1 more than usual, you only have to get a SMART score of 60 in each of the areas, okay? So the first strand we want you to work on is M.1, and it should say understanding integers. I highlighted what that will look like for you when you go into IXL. So it's the very first strand. The next strand that we have outlined for you is still under M. Again, it's one of those new ones, so it doesn't have a number assigned to it. So it's the one that's in between M3 and M4. So you can see that right here, okay? And then the last one we have, you have to move to 6th grade, letter P. And remember, these are all in 6th grade, guys. And it's another new one, and it's going to fall in between P3 and P4, and it should say new opposites of rational numbers. So I'm going to go ahead into IXL. I'm just going to do kind of a little precursor of what these types of questions are going to look like, and then you guys are free to go off and work on your own. So let's see. All right, so we have M.1, understanding integers. So basically what they're going to do in these problems, guys, is they're going to give you a real world scenario, and you have to recognize if a negative integer or a positive integer would best represent the situation. So removing 5 chairs from a table, you're taking away, negative's taking away, okay? Think of negative as like taking away, whereas a positive is a gain or adding on. So £2 increase, you're adding on 2. $4 price increase is positive. 1 less inch of snow this year than last winter, so you're taking away, that's a -1. An elevator rises, so it's going up, so that's going to be in here, next level, you'll just +1. Okay? 3 students move away to a different school, so they're leaving, they're being pushed away, so that's a -3. $2 price increase, that's a +2. And you'll notice I'm not putting those positive signs, I'm just writing a regular 2. Removing 9 plates from a stack, that's a -9. Okay, look at that. I already reached a 60. That took me maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes. Okay, so that is an easy strand. Next one is going to be this new understanding opposite integers. So it falls in between M.3 and M.4. So you're graphing the number on the number line, and then you're going to identify its opposite. So it says graph 5 on the number line, so you're just going to touch 5, okay, and it'll plot a point for you. If you mess up, you just tap the point again and it'll remove it. So there's graph 5. Opposite of 5 is going to be a negative 5. All right. Graph negative 5 on the number line. Well, there's negative 5 to the left of 0. Its opposite has to be 5 away from 0 on the right side, so that's going to be a positive 5. Graph negative 20 on the number line. So you'll see that this number line is going up by distances of 5. So negative 20 is to the left of 0. So the opposite is going to be 20 away from the right of 0. Okay, so that'll be a positive 20. Graph negative 1, so that's to the left of 0. Opposite of that is going to be a positive 1. Graph 0. Okay, so I love this one. 0, okay? There's no such thing as a negative or positive 0, okay? 0 just is in the middle. Think of it as like the division between your positive and negative numbers. So when you're focused on that, guys, there is no negative 0, okay? The opposite of 0 is just 0 itself. So you would just say 0. Graph negative 5. What number is opposite of that? It's going to be a positive 5. Oops. All right, and then graph negative 10. Opposite of a negative 10 is going to be a positive 10. Right there again, I'm at a 60. I think that maybe took me 2 minutes. All right, then you're going to scroll down to P. Okay, remember there are 2 of those new strands, but you're doing the one that's in between P3 and P4, so it says opposite of rational numbers. So these rational numbers can be integers, whole numbers, natural numbers, or they can be any value that can be written as a fraction. So what is the opposite of negative 20? Opposite of negative 20 is going to be positive 20. All right, what is the opposite of 37? Opposite of 37 is a negative 37. What is the opposite of 15? Made a mistake. Negative 15. All right. Oops, and this, okay, what is the opposite of negative 81? It's going to be a positive 81. What is the opposite of 2.7? So right here we have a rational number because 2.7 can be written as a fraction, which is 2 7/10. Okay? Opposite of that, just going to place a negative sign. Now be careful because they'll tell you how they want you to put that answer. They could have said write your answer as a fraction, so make sure you're paying attention to that. So this is going to be a negative 2.7. All right. What is the opposite of 14? Again, that's going to be a negative 14. What is the opposite of 0? We love that one because it's just 0. And again, got to a 60. There you go. You guys got this. Get it done. Enjoy your day. Stay cool. Miss you all. Bye, guys.